Is it true? Clemson is not ranked for the first time in 7 years? Can Cincinnati actually make the playoffs for college football? Oklahoma is playing Texas. Does anybody even really give a crap if they're playing each other or not? We got big games all over college football for week 6. We are going to discuss them here. And then we will give you my feel-good pick, my lock pick, my upset pick, and my sneaky, pinky good pick that you should probably make if you want to make some money. You can get all that here on the Coach Steve Show podcast. Welcome. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much. Please hit the subscribe button, then hit the like button. Leave a comment if you want. It will take all of 10 seconds for you to hit the button. It helps me out so much. You can also find the podcast wherever you listen to your podcast in audio form, Apple, Spotify, wherever. And if you follow them, especially on Apple, you follow them, it will alert you when a new episode drops, and you can get all of this. As soon as you know it drops, man, I got to go check out the Coach Steve Show. And by the way, the podcast is also on the Belly Up Sports Network. It's a podcast network with podcasts everywhere. Fantasy sports, NASCAR, baseball, NBA, NFL, college basketball, college football, Canadian football, fantasy, even stuff outside of sports you can find there. There's blogs, there's podcasts. Go check out, go to bellyupsports.com and check out all of that. My podcast is on there. Everybody, there's a bunch of others on there. And you want to talk about bets, you want to make some money, and you want free money, and I'm talking about free money. You go to mybookie.ag and use the code BELLYUPFANTASY. It will double your first deposit. You want to deposit $1 million, you will get $2 million. And then give me some of the winning afterwards. You want to deposit just $100. You want to put in $1, you're going to get $2. That's just crazy. Free money. Please go do all that for me. It will let them know I sent you. Please check out everything. Thank you so much. Let's move on to today's episode. We are now, believe it or not, in college football week 6. One of the topics not going to be very long is Clemson Tiger football, who has been on top of the world for the past years, winning multiple national titles, beating Alabama for most of those national titles. They are now 3-2. 3-2. Losing to Georgia, beating South Carolina State, barely squeezing one out versus Georgia Tech, losing to North Carolina State, and then barely beating Boston College. For the first time in 7 years, they are not ranked in the top 25. Now, does that matter? You can still go on and win, but they are not ranked for the first time. Crazy under Dabo Swinney. But when you don't have Trevor Lawrence, see, people ask, what's the difference between this? They don't have a ton of NFL defensive players. And when you don't have a Heisman quarterback that started for 3 or 4 years, he was there for a very long time, and your first-round draft pick, this is what's going to happen. So that's just something I wanted to bring up really quick, that they're not ranked for the first time in 7 years. That is absolutely crazy to me that they're not ranked. I mean, the transfer portal's helped out a bunch of other teams. Everybody in the else in the ACC is getting better. I think next year Clemson will be better. They're kind of young in certain spots, but it's just crazy. They're not ranked. Usually they're coached up to win some games, but other teams are starting to catch up. Dabo's going to have to adjust of what they do there. But that's crazy. The 3-2, they were probably going to lose another game or two for the rest of the year. To not be ranked, we're not going to see them in the college football playoff. It's just crazy. College football is fantastic when stuff like this happens. People are getting their wish. They don't want to see Alabama, Clemson there anymore. They're going to see Alabama no matter what, because Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney is a good coach, but Nick Saban is the GOAT when it comes to college football. Just bring that up. It's just absolutely crazy. A big game that happened over the week was Cincinnati finally won a big game during the regular season. They come out and they beat Notre Dame. They can't punch Notre Dame in the mouth. Notre Dame just couldn't convert on a lot of things. Cincinnati is now undefeated. They are undefeated. They are ranked pretty high. They are now number 5 in the nation. They are 4-0. They beat Miami of Ohio. They beat Murray State. They beat Indiana. Then they beat Notre Dame. The rest of their schedule should be able to win. Now, the question is going to be, if they win out, are they going to be able to make the college football playoff? This discussion has been going on for a while. When you got non-Power 5 teams going undefeated, are they able to win? Now, last year they put up a good resume for it. This year, if they win out, they probably should. A spot opened up when Clemson, is going to not be ranked and lose some games. But maybe the Notre Dame one's the one. Maybe that's what gets them there. But they're going to beat Temple, and then if they don't slip up against UCF, because Gus is a great coach, that's the one that could slip up. Then you got Navy with the triple option, and you're going to be able to handle that. Tulane's a tough team. They're going to beat Tulsa. They're going to beat USF. SMU will be a tough one. They'll beat ECU. Now, if they win out, I think you got to put them in. I think we're at that point now. They stay at the number, but they got to get to that number 4 because we only have 4 freaking teams for the playoffs because we can't put more teams, freaking idiots, at the NCAA and the College Football Committee. Idiots is what they are. And they're idiots if they don't listen to this show. Just let everybody know. If Cincinnati wins out and they can get to that number 4 spot, I think they deserve a spot. Maybe you just do it. They win out, give them a spot in the playoff. If they get beat, they get beat. And then you kind of know after that, like, okay, maybe we don't need to always put these undefeated teams on their schedule. But I think Cincinnati beating Notre Dame, I believe Notre Dame was ranked number 9 at the time. Notre Dame's not what they were last year, but they were. It is Notre Dame. They were ranked pretty high. This might be the year that Cincinnati makes the playoffs. I think you need to put them in. Their defense is playing well. Their offense is moving the ball. I think you put them in. I think if they can get to that number 4 in the nation spot and they stay there, I think they can put them there. But it all depends on, they've got to win out. And some of these games are going to have to blow people out. Not like 50-something to 10, but they're going to have to score a lot of points. And you're going to need other teams in this top 5, the top 4 to slip up. You know what I mean? Are they going to let Georgia get into the playoff if Alabama beats them in the SEC, or vice versa? Probably. We'll get to Iowa here in a minute, but then you've got like Iowa. If they beat Ohio State, and then they stay at the number 3. Now it all depends on who's at the number 4. So just a lot of things that have got to happen for Cincinnati to make the playoffs, but I think it's time to put the team like this in the playoffs and see what they're made of. A game, I guess, that's kind of big that I wanted to bring up was the Red River rivalry. It isn't even a rivalry anymore, but Oklahoma plays Texas. And does anybody care? Anybody care anymore? Oklahoma's 6th in the nation. They're 5-0. Whatever. Texas is 4-1. They're 21 in the nation. It's going to be a close game, apparently. Oklahoma had a tough game against West Virginia the other week, and, they're not playing the way they are. Spencer Rattler's no longer a runaway favorite for the Heisman. Are they going to slip up somewhere? Like I said, Tulane almost beat them. It was 40-40 or 35. Nebraska was a close game. West Virginia was a close game, and Kansas State was a close game. So, kudos to them for being 5-0, and they're winning close games. But where are they going to slip up? It could be Texas, or next weekend's TCU. Baylor's not playing bad, and you got Oklahoma State. I think they're number 12. They're going to slip up somewhere. Oklahoma, again, is another team I just don't want to see in the playoff because they just don't do anything when they get there. Give Cincinnati that spot. But, if you look at stats, Texas is scoring more points, actually, 43.8 points versus Oklahoma's 38.4. Oklahoma only gives up 19. Texas gives up 24. Texas actually has more yards, 472.8 a game compared to 433. Oklahoma has more passing yards than Texas. Texas wants to run the football. But when you look at defense, Oklahoma, I guess has a slightly better. Oklahoma gives up 325 yards a game compared to 394 from Texas. Texas gives up less passing yards, but they give up more rushing yards. So right now, Oklahoma only gives up 83.6 yards rushes. So from the only good part of it is going to be Texas run game versus Oklahoma's defense. If they're only giving up 83.6 yards a game and rushing because they're in the Big 12, well, Steve Sarkisian wants to run the ball. So he right here, they're averaging 268 yards on the ground. So that's where it's going to be. If Texas can run the football, they're going to win. This is not going to be it's going to be a huge game just because of history. It's Red River rivalry, blah, 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 blah. But even though Oklahoma's number 6, it doesn't feel like they're number 6. Does that make sense? It doesn't feel like they're doing everything they can. Spencer Rattler is whatever. I'm not a big Spencer Rattler guy. Yeah, he's putting up numbers. He has 260 yards passing, 10 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Compared to Texas, they have 700. The Thompson kid has 707 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So he almost has the same touchdowns as Spencer Rattler. Just doesn't have the yards, but Texas wants to run the ball more. Their running back Robinson has 105 carries, 652 yards, and 7 touchdowns. It's a close one, 56.9%. I think Oklahoma's going to win. I'm only bringing this up because it's supposed to be this really good game. Right now, Oklahoma is minus 3.5. Over under is 63.5. All that stuff that Vegas says. When you compare schedules, Texas beats the Raging Cajuns. They lose to Arkansas. Arkansas is pretty good. They beat Rice. They beat Texas Tech. They beat TCU. So which schedule is tougher? They seem pretty even to me. But for Oklahoma, it's got to be a little bit of alarming when you barely squeeze one out versus Tulane, and then you let Nebraska hang around it because they've lost to Illinois. West Virginia was just a couple plays away from beating them, and then Kansas State has been a thorn in Oklahoma's backside the past 2 years, but they finally win. So, it is whatever. This can go either way, but my thing is, does anybody even really care anymore? This is not what it used to be. We might have it on the TV just because of the history of it, but this is not going to be the same exciting game as it used to be. Why are they even still rivals anymore? They both collaborated. Now they're going to go to the SEC. Does it even really matter? Who knows? Who knows? And who really cares all that much, I guess? That's my whole point with it. Spencer Rattler probably won't win the Heisman, but it is what it is. We are moving on. Another huge, huge game on our slate here. Arkansas will play Ole Miss. They're both coming off tough losses against the 2 best teams in the nation out of Alabama and Georgia. Coach Pittman, great coach, versus Lane Kiffin, great coach. This is going to be a very electric, exciting game. They both, Briles, the offensive coordinator, Kendall Briles, offensive coordinator at Arkansas, was the offensive coordinator for Lane Kiffin when he's at FAU. They're both going to try to run no tempo. This is going to be a high-scoring affair. It's going to come down to defense. Both their defenses got beat up, so it's going to come down to the line of scrimmage. Is Arkansas's offensive line going to be able to control Ole Miss's defensive line, who did not play very well against Alabama? Arkansas is going to watch that tape and see what they did, how they can incorporate that. And Coach Pittman's just a great offensive line coach. I've said this a million times. He was born to coach at Arkansas, and he was born to coach offensive line. Much respect for an offensive line coach. Lane Kiffin is an offensive mastermind. This is going to be a high-flying game. Number 13, Arkansas travels to number 17, Ole Miss. This game right here, I will agree with Lane Kiffin. Get your popcorn ready. This is going to be a lot of points scored. It's going to be a lot of fast things happening. It's going to come down to who's going to make a mistake. Is Ole Miss's quarterback going to make a mistake? Is Arkansas's quarterback going to make a mistake? Are they going to miss a block? They're going to miss a tackle. Something's going to happen. And I will say this, it will come down to a special teams play. Somebody's punt return or kick return is going to get a huge run down into the red zone, or they're going to turn a punt for a touchdown. It will come down to a special teams play. I am calling it right here. But this game, get your popcorn ready. to see Ole Miss's offense and Arkansas's offense and how hard they hit on defense coming into play at Ole Miss. It is an 11 a.m. game, and it's going to be a fantastic game to watch. Get your freaking popcorn ready. And two great coaches going head-to-head. And Lane Kiffin and Coach Pittman, they have something to prove from their last week games before. Get ready for this one. The keys for that one is going to come down to special teams and play calling. This game I've talked about on a different episode when I talk about the Big Ten football, but we have to talk about it again. Number 4, Penn State will travel to number 3, Iowa. It's a 3 p.m. game. This is going to be a hard-hitting game. They are very similar teams. I've already talked about it on my Big Ten episode. Go check it out for week 6. I had picked Iowa to win this one. I have Iowa winning the Big Ten. This one, you want to talk about hard-hitting. This can be hard-hitting. Now, this might be a boring game to watch. This may not be a game where you're going to see high-flying offenses, but you're going to see the ball move. You're going to see hard-hitting defenses, and you're going to see running backs do their thing. Iowa, when you give them a quarterback that can make throws and manage the offense, they are a team to watch out for. Penn State is going to do a lot of good things too. They have a decent quarterback. This is the Big Ten game of the week, I am guessing. It's going to be hard-hitting. It's going to be flying. It's going to be fun, but there's not going to be a ton of points scored. You want to see a ton of points scored and hard-hitting, go watch Arkansas, the Ole Miss game. You just want to see good old-fashioned, we're going to run the ball at you and hit you as hard as we can and take what you give us game. You're going to want to watch Penn State versus Iowa. It is going to, for me, this is going to be a fun game to watch. It's going to be highly televised. Number 4 versus number 3. If number 4, one of these teams goes down and Cincinnati wins, Cincinnati's going to squeak right in there, and then they got to stay there. Penn State right now, other things have to happen, but for right now, you're going to talk about rankings. Depends on Oklahoma, and if Penn State loses and Cincinnati wins big, it's going to sneak them right into the top of that. And then they just got to stay there so they could try to figure out if they're going to be able to make the playoffs. Just to continue on from a previous episode I did with college football, LSU with Coach Orgeron's seat getting very warm. They have a tough game. They have to. And Kentucky is now number 16 in the nation, coming off is Florida. Keys for LSU. Kentucky's just got to do what they do. They're going to pass and run the ball pretty evenly. LSU is going to have to control the line of scrimmage. Their offensive line has got to be healthy. They have to figure out how to control the line of scrimmage. Do you bring in guys, tight ends or wings to help go block? Do you keep more guys in to block to be able to pass the ball? It sounds like I'm talking about the Chicago Bears. This is a gut check time for Coach Orgeron and LSU. They lose to Kentucky. Kentucky will move on to be 6-0 and undefeated in the SEC, while LSU is going to be sitting there 3-3. And every time this happens, you turn the dial up on Coach Orgeron's seat, which I am sad for. I do not want to see him be gone from LSU. I think this week, Coach Orgeron needed to come in, put his foot down, and put his stamp on more things. Maybe he has to take control of over more things. But his staff has got to step up. They've got to do more. They have to play better on defense. They have to tackle better. And on offense, they've got to make catches. Their quarterback's going to get better. But the offensive line has got to protect them, and they've got to pass or run block better. And that's going to be the keys for them to kind of come in and beat Kentucky. But Kentucky, confidence is a big part of the game. They are extremely confident in what they're doing. This is going to be a good SEC game. You're looking for, I thought Penn State and Iowa was going to be good old-fashioned. You want to see a Kentucky team play old-fashioned against Ed Orgeron. Even though they're losing, they're going to play tough. This is the game for you guys to go watch. But keys for that, Kentucky is just to continue to do what they do. LSU, you're going to have to turn it up a notch. You're going to have to open up that entire playbook. Defense, you're going to have to disguise more. You're going to have to play different coverages out of different looks, or play the same coverage out of very many different looks. You're going to have to really come up with some exotic blitzes. So Coach Orgeron's going to have to dig deep into that playbook of his from his defensive background and really come up with something, because they need a spark down there in LSU, down there in the Bayou. He's got to get them some crawfish or something. I have no idea, but they've got to churn it up a notch here. And I feel for Ed, Coach Orgeron. I don't want don't want him to be gone from LSU. Last game that we're going to quickly discuss is Alabama versus Texas A&M. The Jedi Master versus the Padawan. Jimbo Fisher versus Nick Saban. Texas A&M is no longer ranked. They're struggling on offense. Now they got to play the number one team in the nation. Now, last year, Alabama traveled, and Texas A&M gave them a fight. But they no longer have the quarterback. They no longer have the same offense players. They're coming off a tough loss from Mississippi State. Alabama's coming in with their strength and conditioning staff who's getting Alabama bigger, faster, stronger each week. They have $1 million already made quarterback in Young. Their defense may be a little smaller, but they're strong and they're going to fly around. Alabama's traveling to that 12th man. Daddy's coming home to check on his kid and Jimbo Fisher and see what he's done. This is going to be a bloodbath. Alabama's going to win big, and Texas A&M is not going to score as many points. They're going to be up for this game, but it doesn't matter how up you get for this game if you don't got the dudes to go against their dudes. Because you're giving Nick Saban an actual real year, not a COVID year. This is an actual year for them to prepare for teams. Nick Saban's going to stand there and coach as hard as he can. Jimbo Fisher's going to look like he's trying to figure out his taxes and what he owes the IRS. He's going to look like a grandpa reading the newspaper when he's over there with like his 15 pages in the folder with his glasses and all that. I just like talking about these because Nick Saban's undefeated versus his former guys. I think the only coach out there that might get him either this year or later or get him at some point, it might either be Kirby Smart because Georgia's playing very well, or one day maybe Lane Kiffin does get him. But he is undefeated versus assistants for a reason. Doesn't matter if you think you know what Nick Saban's going to do, they're going to change it up. They do what they do. That 12th man's going to mean nothing. And I mean nothing to hurt Alabama. They're going to come in and win big versus Texas A&M. And then Texas A&M's going to go on a downward spiral, like I've said before. Some of that Jimbo Fisher I just don't like and trust. He's there for a reason, but I don't think he's worth all the money that Texas A&M is paying him. They're paying him Nick Saban type money almost. Dabo Swinney, who's won many national titles, money. And I just don't think he's worth that much money. And it's getting proven now. So these get people, the school that's paying him all this money, I think it's starting to come back and bite them. And he's not worth the money. He ain't worth the money. I just wanted to go over those games real quick with you. And then we're going to end the episode with my feel good, my lock, my upset, and my sneaky picks. To go make bet on, go to mybookie.ag and use the code. Go make some money. My feel good one is Georgia minus 14.5 versus Arkansas. No offense to Coach Pittman, but Georgia's hot right now. So I'm going to go with Georgia minus 14.5. My lock is BYU minus 5.5. I think that's a safe bet to go with BYU. My upset, I just talked about Ed, but looking at this, I'm going to have to go with Kentucky over LSU. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be a hard-hitting game. I think Ed should still stay there, but like I said, when you're all things are out the window, when you're on here making bets with money, you have to go with that. And then I've got Arkansas. My sneaky one, Oregon State over Washington State. I like Washington State. I like the run and shoot, but Oregon State is just, they're playing tough. They're playing very well. We're going to have to go with Oregon State over Washington. It's not the upset, but that's just a sneaky one. Sneaky one to pick from. So, Georgia and Arkansas, I feel good. Georgia minus 14.5. BYU playing Boise State. BYU's number 10 in the nation, minus 5.5. Kentucky over LSU. And Oregon State over Washington State. Those are the picks you need to make. Watch out for Oregon State. They're playing much better. Just depends on which Washington State team shows up with the run and shoot. I'm a big fan of it, but like I said, all this stuff's out the window when it comes to bets. And that's it. We got through the episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please like, subscribe, share out, follow, all that stuff. Go check out all the affiliates in the description, all the affiliates at the beginning of this show. Go check out the rest of the episodes on the Coach Steve Show podcast. And then we'll see you guys on the next episode. This wraps up another episode of the Coach Steve Show podcast.